Picture this. A toxic neighbor thinks she can destroy someone's life and property for 30 years and get away with it. She was dead wrong, and the nuclear revenge that followed is probably the most satisfying neighbor revenge story you'll hear all year. Because sometimes the best revenge takes decades to serve, but when it hits, it's absolutely perfect. Let me tell you how a sweet couple's innocent property purchase turned into the ultimate neighbor war that ended with one woman's complete destruction. This neighbor revenge story has everything you could want: property disputes, illegal tree cutting, stream damming, and the most brilliant long-term revenge plan that keeps giving satisfaction year after year. It all started back in the 1980s when Sarah and Mark were young and in love. Mark got into a car accident and walked away with a $30,000 settlement. Most couples would have blown that money, but these two had vision. They found 10 acres of beautiful, undeveloped land with rolling hills, mature trees, and a crystal-clear stream for just $5,000. This wasn't just land. This was their future, their chance to build exactly the life they wanted. Sarah still remembers walking that property for the first time with Mark, planning where they'd put their dream house, where the garden would go, maybe a workshop for Mark's tools. The stream was so peaceful, bubbling over smooth rocks with fish swimming in it. They bought it immediately and became landowners with big dreams. For the first 15 years, everything was perfect. Sarah and Mark would visit their land every weekend. They'd bring friends for camping trips, and later, their kids learned to ride dirt bikes out there. The property became their private paradise, where the children could be children, and adults could escape from everyday stress. Those were some of the happiest times of Sarah's life. The land was everything they'd dreamed and more. They had time to enjoy what they had, time to watch their children grow up in this beautiful place, time to plan for the future. Then, about 15 years ago, developers started buying surrounding land. New houses popped up everywhere. Their quiet country paradise suddenly had neighbors. Sarah and Mark weren't worried at first. Having neighbors might be nice, and maybe it was time to finally build their dream house. What they didn't know was that one neighbor was going to turn their lives into an absolute nightmare. Her name was Judy, and from day one, it was clear she had serious boundary issues. Not just property boundaries, though those became major problems too. Basic human boundaries. This woman was a control freak of epic proportions in this toxic neighbor saga. It started with monthly complaint calls about the kids being too loud on dirt bikes, campfires being too smoky, even the natural stream being too noisy. Yes, she complained about a natural stream making noise. Sarah tried being reasonable, explaining they'd owned the land for over a decade, and their activities were perfectly normal and legal. But toxic neighbors like Judy aren't interested in reason. They want control. The complaints escalated to weekly calls, then daily harassment. Judy claimed she could hear everything from nearly a quarter-mile away. She demanded Sarah ban dirt bikes entirely, stop the campfires, and somehow control nature itself. Sarah realized she wasn't dealing with a reasonable person, but someone who believed she could control other people's property. The phone harassment became so intense that Sarah stopped answering unknown numbers. So Judy switched to texting, long, rambling texts about noise ordinances and property values, and how Sarah's family was destroying the peaceful neighborhood. Then Sarah started noticing strange changes on her property. The stream that had always flowed clear and steady seemed different. Water levels were lower with mud where crystal-clear pools used to be. During one weekend visit, Mark made a discovery that changed everything. Someone had built a dam, a proper dam with rocks, logs, and professional barriers. The dam was on Sarah's property, but clearly built to redirect water toward Judy's land. Judy had decided she deserved more water flow than Sarah, so she just took it without permission, warning, or legal right. But wait, it gets so much worse in this neighbor revenge story. Mark started documenting everything and discovered that someone had cut down trees, not trimmed or pruned, but completely destroyed 23 beautiful mature trees, including gorgeous old oaks that had been growing for decades. The trees were blocking Judy's view, so she simply eliminated them. When Sarah called Judy about the property damage, Judy's response was chilling. She casually said she'd fixed the tree and stream problems, and that Sarah should thank her for improving the property. Thank her for destroying 23 mature trees and illegally damming a stream on land that didn't belong to her. That's when Sarah knew she was at war with the ultimate toxic neighbor. Instead of exploding, Sarah got smart. She documented every text, every call, every piece of evidence. She researched property law and discovered Judy had made expensive mistakes. Illegally cutting trees on someone else's property comes with serious financial consequences. Each tree can be worth thousands in damages, especially mature ones. Damming natural streams without permits brings hefty fines and restoration costs. Sarah found a property dispute lawyer who took one look at her evidence and started grinning. Judy was looking at potentially hundreds of thousands in damages and penalties. But legal battles take time, and during the court proceedings, Judy's harassment escalated. More hostile texts claiming Sarah was destroying property values, threats of lawsuits, multiple police calls for violations that never materialized. Then tragedy struck that changed everything in this neighbor war. Mark had been fighting cancer, and by the time they caught it, the disease was advanced. Sarah spent months nursing her dying husband, while Judy continued sending nasty texts about dirt bike noise. Mark passed away on a Tuesday morning in spring, with Sarah holding his hand. The dream of building their house together died with him. For months, Sarah couldn't visit the property because the memories were too painful. But grief clarified things. Sarah thought about what Mark would want, and she knew he'd been looking forward to legal victory just as much as she was. When the court judgment came down, Sarah could hardly believe the numbers. $10,000 per tree, 23 trees destroyed. That's $230,000 just for trees. Plus $45,000 for timber value, plus fines and restoration costs for the illegal dam, plus attorney fees. Judy owed Sarah over $300,000 in this property dispute victory. But money wasn't enough for the ultimate neighbor revenge Sarah had in mind. Without Mark, Sarah didn't want to build on the land anymore. The memories were too painful. She decided to sell, but wanted the right buyers who would appreciate what the land meant. She listed the property for $1 million, planning to sell to individuals who would build a single home and respect the natural beauty. Something interesting happened during showings. Every time potential buyers visited, Judy would mysteriously appear with concerns about noise, flooding, wildlife, whatever nonsense she could dream up. Judy was sabotaging Sarah's property sale. Most people would have been furious. Sarah was delighted because she'd been waiting for exactly this opportunity. A family contacted Sarah about the property. The father was a contractor, the mother a teacher, and they had 2 teenage boys absolutely obsessed with dirt bikes. They'd been looking for property where the boys could practice and build a proper racing track. They offered $750,000, which was $250,000 below asking price. Sarah accepted immediately. Before signing papers, Sarah learned about their plans. They intended building their house far from Judy's property and preserving most land for recreation, specifically dirt bike racing. They were planning a professional-grade track with jumps, obstacles, and features serious riders dream about. The boys planned inviting friends for regular practice sessions. Sarah asked about noise levels and timing. They'd probably start riding around 7 in the morning on weekends and continue until sunset. During summer, they might ride even more frequently. Sarah told them it sounded absolutely perfect for the ultimate neighbor revenge. 6 months later, construction began on Judy's worst nightmare. The Johnson family built a beautiful home respecting the natural landscape, preserved and enhanced the stream, replanted trees to replace what Judy destroyed, and built the most spectacular dirt bike track Sarah had ever seen. This wasn't a simple trail, but a professional quality course with banked turns, elevated jumps, rhythm sections, and technical obstacles. The track wound through the entire property using natural hills and valleys for exciting, challenging terrain. The Johnson boys, Jake and Tyler, treated that track like their personal playground. They'd be out every morning before school practicing for competitions. Every weekend brought groups of friends for racing sessions. The sound of dirt bikes became the neighborhood soundtrack in this neighbor revenge story. Sarah drove by regularly during construction, timing visits when Judy could see her. She'd wave cheerfully and chat with the Johnsons about progress. The first time those dirt bikes fired up Saturday morning at 7 a.m. sharp, Sarah pulled over and laughed until she cried. Remember, this was the same toxic neighbor who complained about occasional weekend camping trips and called natural stream sounds too noisy. Now she was waking up every day to professional dirt bike racing just yards from her bedroom. The best part? There was absolutely nothing Judy could do. The Johnsons had checked noise ordinances. Dirt bikes are legal on private property during daylight hours. The track met all safety and environmental requirements. Judy tried filing complaints with police, county officials, state environmental agencies, even homeowners associations with no authority. Every complaint was investigated and dismissed. The Johnson family was doing nothing wrong in this perfect neighbor revenge. But Sarah's revenge was just beginning. Jake and Tyler weren't casual riders, but serious competitors traveling to races throughout the region. Serious competitors need practice partners. Word spread through the dirt bike community about this amazing private track. Soon, the Johnsons hosted regular practice sessions with riders from across the state. Weekend mornings that used to be peaceful became small-scale racing events. The track attracted semi-professional riders, preparing for major competitions. Some weekends brought 20 or 30 riders using the track. Sarah made sure to drive by during big riding events, slowing down to wave at riders and chat about their bikes. She wanted everyone knowing how much she supported their use of the property in this ongoing neighbor war. During conversations, Sarah learned the track was becoming so popular that informal racing leagues were forming. Groups of friends meeting regularly to compete, typically scheduled for early weekend mornings starting right at dawn to avoid daytime heat. Dawn every weekend. Engines revving, wheels spinning, riders shouting encouragement. Sarah tried imagining Judy lying in bed at 6:30 every morning, listening to dozens of dirt bikes warming up for weekly races. The thought was absolutely delicious revenge. The universe wasn't done with this toxic neighbor yet. A rider who regularly used the track worked for a local event planning company. She approached the Johnsons about hosting a major regional dirt bike competition. The track was perfect for serious competitors, safely designed and easily accessible. The Johnson family agreed to host the 3-day event with riders from across the region. Practice sessions would run dawn to dusk, with actual races over a full weekend. The regional competition was spectacular. Over 100 riders participated, from teenagers to seasoned veterans. The event brought spectators, vendors, and media coverage from throughout the state. Sarah attended as a VIP guest, setting up her lawn chair right at the property line where she could watch races and keep an eye on Judy's house. She never saw Judy outside during the entire weekend, but noticed all of Judy's windows were closed despite beautiful weather. Judy's house had acquired new features: sound dampening curtains in every window, white noise machines, insulation work around doors and windows. Poor Judy was spending thousands trying to block out Sarah's neighbor revenge. The competition became an annual event, growing larger each year, attracting more riders, spectators, and media attention. Sarah never misses it, becoming known as the woman who made it possible by selling to the right family. During last year's competition, a newspaper reporter interviewed Sarah about her connection to the track. She explained how much she'd always loved having dirt bikes on the property, going back to when her own children were young. She talked about being proud the land was being used for something bringing joy to young people. She made sure mentioning how much the community had grown to love the sound of weekend dirt bikes. The article ran with a large photo of Sarah beside the track, smiling and giving thumbs up while dirt bikes raced behind her. The caption read, "Local property owner credits dirt bike track with bringing community together." Sarah ordered a dozen copies and mailed them to everyone she could think of, including mutual acquaintances living near Judy. Sarah's neighbor revenge reached absolute peak during a conversation with Mrs. Johnson about 3 years after they moved in. Mrs. Johnson mentioned being approached by their neighbor across the valley, interested in selling her property. The woman had been trying to sell for years but having trouble finding buyers. She seemed really unhappy, saying the neighborhood had become too noisy and she needed somewhere more peaceful. She'd asked if they knew anyone interested in buying a house with a constant dirt bike noise problem. Sarah did quick math. Judy had paid close to $500,000 for that property 15 years ago. After spending probably another $100,000 on improvements and soundproofing, she was asking $250,000 and willing to negotiate. A loss of over $300,000. The same amount Sarah had won in their legal battle. Mrs. Johnson mentioned that Judy kept asking if there was any way to limit track usage or move it to a different property area. She seemed to think the dirt bike noise was temporary and they'd eventually get tired of it. Sarah quickly explained this was a permanent installation. The boys were planning to take over the track when older and maybe expand into a business. They were already in talks with dirt bike organizations about hosting additional events. What Mrs. Johnson didn't know was that Sarah had been quietly encouraging those additional events through donations to youth dirt bike organizations, specifically earmarked for events at the Johnson track. The track wasn't just thriving in this neighbor revenge story, it was growing. During regular property visits, Sarah had gotten to know Jake and Tyler well. Great kids with genuine passion for their sport. As they'd gotten older, they talked about long-term plans for the track. Jake was studying business management to eventually turn the track into commercial operation. Tyler was interested in technical design and building additional tracks in other locations. Sarah mentioned hearing Judy's property was for sale and suggested it might be an interesting expansion opportunity. Adjacent land would provide space for spectator seating, vendor booths, maybe even a second track. The boys were immediately excited. They approached their parents about purchasing Judy's property when she found a buyer willing to meet her reduced price. Mr. Johnson was intrigued by the business potential after researching dirt bike track operation economics. With growing event popularity and increasing demand for track time, expanding made sense. They made Judy an offer, $200,000 cash with 30-day closing. Judy accepted immediately. So Sarah had orchestrated 6 years of daily revenge through dirt bike noise and engineered the sale of Judy's property to the very people tormenting her. Judy didn't just lose her house to her enemies. They paid her $100,000 less than her asking price for the privilege of expanding their revenge operation. Sarah attended the closing as a friend of the buyers helping with paperwork. She got to sit in the same room as Judy for the first time since their original confrontation about trees in the dam. Judy looked older, tired, completely defeated. She avoided eye contact throughout the process, while Sarah was extra friendly and chatty with the Johnsons about expansion plans. "I'm so excited about the new spectator seating area," Sarah said loudly enough for Judy to hear. "And Tyler, I love your idea for the beginner track. It's going to bring so many more families to events." Judy signed her paperwork with shaking hands and left without saying a word. The expansion project took almost a year, but the results were spectacular. The former Judy property now houses state-of-the-art timing systems, professional spectator bleachers, concession facilities, and a smaller track for younger riders. The venue can accommodate events with over 500 participants and more than 1,000 spectators. The noise level increased proportionally in this ongoing neighbor revenge. But here's the detail that makes Sarah smile every time. Remember that beautiful view Judy was desperate to preserve that she illegally cut down 23 trees? The new spectator bleachers are positioned to block that exact view. Even if those trees were still standing, Judy's former vista is permanently obscured by metal bleachers filled with cheering spectators every weekend. The view she destroyed Sarah's property to obtain no longer exists. 6 years later, Sarah drives by the track weekly. She's become an unofficial grandmother to Jake and Tyler, always invited to watch practice and competitions. She's gotten to know dozens of riders and families, becoming a respected member of the local dirt bike community. She never blocked Judy's number, so she still occasionally receives text messages. But now, instead of complaints about noise, they're desperate pleas for help. Judy moved to a supposedly quiet neighborhood 2 hours away, only to discover her new neighbors include a family with 3 teenage boys obsessed with dirt bikes. Sarah always responds with sympathetic concern and helpful suggestions. Maybe Judy should try soundproof windows or move somewhere even more remote. She never mentions hearing through friends that Jake and Tyler have been consulting with the dirt bike family in Judy's new neighborhood about track design. What a coincidence in this neighbor revenge story. Last month, Sarah received the most satisfying text of her entire revenge campaign. Judy wrote that she was giving up on finding quiet places to live and moving to a Florida retirement community where motorized vehicles are banned. Sarah texted back immediately, "That sounds perfect for you. I hope you finally find the peace you've been looking for." She was genuinely sincere. Sarah's never been cruel and doesn't wish actual harm on anyone, but she believes in justice. After 30 years of dealing with Judy's harassment, property damage, and general awfulness, seeing her admit defeat and retreat to Florida feels like the perfect ending. Well, almost perfect. Because Sarah has one final surprise Judy doesn't know about yet. Jake and Tyler have been more successful than anyone expected. Their track operation became profitable enough to franchise the concept. They've identified locations in 12 states where they want to build similar facilities. Yes, one location is 20 minutes from Judy's new Florida retirement community. Jake and Tyler asked Sarah to serve as consultant for the expansion project, specifically for her expertise in community relations and neighbor management. Sarah accepted immediately. She's planning to attend the grand opening of the Florida track next year. She might even send Judy an invitation, just to be neighborly. After all, Sarah learned long ago that the best neighbor revenge isn't getting angry or losing your temper. The best revenge is patience. The best revenge is playing the long game. The best revenge is making sure justice doesn't just get served once, but keeps getting served over and over for years and years. Some people say you can't put a price on happiness, but Sarah knows exactly what happiness costs. It costs $250,000, less than market value for 10 acres of land, plus the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, if you're patient enough and smart enough and just a little ruthless, the good guys really do win in the ultimate neighbor revenge story. Every morning when Sarah wakes up, she can hear those dirt bike engines in the distance, and she smiles knowing that somewhere, Judy is hearing them too. Even in Florida. That's the beautiful thing about really good neighbor revenge. It echoes forever,